Hey guys, welcome back for another video. If this is your first time watching, I am Matt, and this here is a 1950 Caterpillar D4 that I have rescued and I'm trying to get running again. In this video, I'm hoping to be able to rebuild this whole bevel, steering clutch gear assembly. So anyway, let's get right to it. Now, if you're like me and you had no idea how a bulldozer worked before you bought one, let me just sum this up by saying this is pretty much like the rear end in a car. You have a ring gear, which rides on a pinion that comes out of the transmission, and then power goes through the steering clutches into the outer drives. And these steering clutches, they can enable or disable power to each individual drive. As far as how they do that, I have no idea yet. We're going to find out when we take it apart. But it's kind of already off to a hard start. I'll show you why. These cheap Amazon impact sockets are very, very wide around the outside. And in fact, this socket is actually too small to fit on this nut. You can't clear these springs. So I searched around and I found this one, which is just a little bit thinner. It's a 12-point non-impact, but you can get it in here on this nut. So that was the first problem. Second problem is I got it for 10 bucks on eBay. It's a 1-inch drive. So I had to borrow a 1-inch impact. The wrong way. There we go. At least that worked. Okay, so now I got to figure out how to pull it. It's kind of a difficult pull because these are really close to each other. So I'm gonna have to rig something up here. I don't really have a puller big enough. These are 5/8. I don't have a puller even near that size. So I have some threaded rod here. So I got this bottle jack that, if I get it here, wait, is it sideways? If I get it in sideways, I can probably use it. But bottle jacks don't work upside down. So I'm gonna have to add a reservoir to it. Well, the camera wasn't running, but I ended up drilling this out a little bit and then tapping it and running this 1/8-inch NPT fitting in. I didn't have an NPT tap, but I found that a 10mm fine tap converts back to hamburger units pretty well. There's a decent interference fit on it, and this isn't really a high pressure thing, it just needs to be airtight. So I put some thread sealant around the bottom, and I think we'll be good here. It took a lot of doing here, but I finally got this thing bled. I guess the trick is you got to lay it with the port on the top and then pump it up and push it out and get all the air out. There was a lot of air in this system, but now it seems to be working upside down. So, okay, I think we're ready. I guess in the words of Sam Jackson in Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts. Now, am I at 8 tons right now? All right, well, before I buy new tools, I like to make sure I absolutely positively need them. So that's kind of what that previous exercise was about. So we got, I ordered this. We'll see how this looks. It came with gloves. That'll be helpful. Not really sure what this is about. Is this a different fitting? Oh, I guess it's the same fitting. I don't know. I'll figure that out. I'm gonna put a gauge on it too. I got a gauge here. So I'll do that first. This thing's worthless without a gauge because otherwise you won't know what tonnage you're setting it to. Now this is a really low profile jack, obviously, because I was really worried about it fitting between the all thread. I do have a hollow ram coming in the next couple days. So that's as high as it goes. Yep. The nice thing about this is I can hide behind this post over here and cower in fear while it explodes, versus using the bottle jack and having it explode in my face. All right, I'm hiding over here. Nope, dog's here. Bedtime, dog. Well, I'd be lying if I said that was unexpected. Those were pretty weak. I've broken those before. So I put this one in the bandsaw just so I can get it to fit between the saw thread. And let me straighten this out and we'll do take 2. Well, the video is officially going off the rails now. I'd hoped to have just the steering clutch rebuild in this video, and it just is a disaster. So as much fun as it was shearing parts in half with my press over here, my little ram, I had to order I went on eBay and I found a used 17.5 ton, like a manual puller. And it's missing most of the parts, but the only part I really need is just the forge part that goes across the all thread, so I can push against that instead of just cast junk. So unfortunately, the Postal Service has not been very efficient, and it is just, I don't know if it's lost or what, but I have too much other footage kind of being built up, so I need to maybe I'll just release a video with just random other crap I've been working on. Kind of stinks, but it is what it is. Well, if you have a good memory, you'll remember that I used to have the engine sitting vertically on a couple of furniture dollies. And so what I did is I just gently eased her on over and gently rolled it over. And now she's over here. I don't really know if I'm going to need any parts off this thing, but it'll just sit over here if I need it. And you know, I didn't put the pistons back in. The cam's still sitting out of there. And then this crank, I never really talked much about this crank, but I did measure it, and it was 50 under on all the mains. It was 30 under on the rods, and it's been ground down. It's no good. There's really no coming back from that unless you spend a lot of money and have it built up. We got a lot of space to open here for the new engine that'll be here in about a week or 2, and then we'll be looking over that thing. Well, I did manage to get a brake band all riveted up, and the rivets turned out nice, but it's got 2 problems. And I showed this, I think, on a member video last week. But first of all, I wasn't really thinking when I put these carriage bolts in, and this is just like a dipped bolt, not strong enough. And I was using the weak torque wrench just to get them really snugged on there, and it snapped that right off. So I'm going to have to take this pad off, and I have the correct fasteners now. And then also, I'll show you right here, when you apply some tension on this thing, let me get it up here. When you apply tension, you can see that one, this carriage bolt's a little bit too big underneath that pad, and it's not contacting this thing very well at all. You can see that gap there. So we're gonna need to fix that. I don't really want to take this thing apart again, but you know, if I had to write down the 10 things that I don't ever want to have to go through in life, at least 6 of them are taking this thing back apart and fixing something small. So I just have to take these 6 rivets out here and here to replace all these bolts. And I think this looks like someone painted this with like caliper paint or something, like a high temperature caliper paint. I painted this just because it's not going to hurt anything if it's painted, and it was just getting rusty already. I didn't paint the threads, and they're all lubed up. I re-cleaned them out, so this should all be ready to go. And this is what the whole tractor is going to look like, a shiny highway yellow, Caterpillar highway yellow. They should have called it Highwayman yellow on account of how expensive this is. All right, well, I got the new hardware on here. I riveted on this is the old pad, and this is the first one I did. So like right here, this is where I drilled in too far, And then when I re-riveted this one, it broke off right here. So I'm gonna junk that pad, and I'll just order just one of these, which hopefully he'll sells me for like 10 or 20 bucks or whatever. I'm still seeing the issue though, and I actually saw this on the other pads that are still on the machine, but this is just not sitting flush enough for my liking. So this is a new pad. I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna slightly grind this out of here a little bit. All right, I got the new pad drilled out. I'm really glad I just decided to scrap this old one, because I mean, you can drill new holes in, it'll just look like garbage. But I did rig up my drill press to have a stop, so I can only drill so far, and that gives me nice repeatable holes on the countersinks on these rivets. And then now it just sits on there. All right, got the rivets in on this one. Look pretty good, and they're definitely set back here. I've really been cranking on these things. Even though it's not as pretty, they're way more set than they were on that first video. And there's just, I have utter confidence that they're gonna be fine. And you can see there's just a tiny bit of a gap there, but on this side it looks good. I think this will be just fine. So one more pad and then I'll be done with this side finally. Gee, let's get this last rivet in and then I'll be finally done with this pad. So I get it just cranked a few times here, and then I come over and then just give it a good old cheat bar on here, and then I kind of turn the pad, and when it starts having a lot of resistance to turning, then I know it's tight enough. It's kind of my gauge. Yeah, like right there, I know I'm good. And there we go. That's the one we just did. Looks pretty good. Okay, all back together. So I'm just going to put a little bit of Loctite on these. And, well, that's way too much. And then a new lock washer and a new nut. And should be good to go. All right, let's give another check here. Oh yeah, that looks good. Hold it tight with one hand here and then show the camera. So I got a firm amount of pressure with just holding with my hand, and I did crack it right there when I was tightening, when I was putting the threaded bolts through the other band, but I think that's okay. But there is no gap, so every single friction surface should make contact for a nice break. Another thing I need to do is repair this gasket mating surface right here, both there and there. It's pretty pitted from all the water that got in there into the steering clutch compartment. So I'm just going to repair just the part that the transmission cover doesn't cover, where it's just these plates that go over it. So I got this is like some kind of epoxy steel stuff that'll fill in this gap that I can just putty knife on, and then once it dries I can sand it flat again. All right, I got it all clean. The directions actually say to mix it by finger or hand, which is interesting. Try not to get it on my growing back fingernail. Might be better just to rub it in by finger here. Of course, my fingers are dirty. Get it in here while it's thin. It thickens really fast. And then I'll let it sit for a minute, then I'll scrape it. It does seem to be sticking inside of all the divots, so that's a good sign. Okay, well I left that one pretty flat and then I just gooped it on there with my fingers. We'll see which one's easier to deal with. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and clean these plates up. Get them all flattened out and ready for paint. They're pretty nasty. These plates are pretty thrashed. Like, look how thin that is. It's like it looks like a knife blade almost. So I don't even know. Maybe I shouldn't even reuse these. I don't think I should. They're just, this one's thrashed, so I'll have to make some new ones up. What's this one look like? This one looks better. Let me give this a quick look. Well, look at this. This one has 2 holes in it. You can see that. But you can see the. So this wouldn't do a very good job of keeping water out, I guess. All right, it's ready to start the sanding. I'm just gonna quickly tape this off so I don't get sand all over the transmission. I got a nice new injury on another finger now. My buddy came over to borrow my wood splitter. I figured I'd help him for a few minutes. And I just filleted from here to here, just filleted that skin right off. It didn't really hurt, but it was bleeding pretty bad. So, just as my other finger was starting to get better. That's what happens. It seems to have actually worked pretty well. I mean, you can't really even see the filler anymore, but it's in those grooves and it's just smooth. I can just feel how smooth it is. Over here where it was really bad, it's just, yeah, it's nice and smooth. You can see, I mean, you can see filler in spots like here. That's just because it was already, there was nothing there and it filled it in. So I'll call that a success and we'll be good on those. Well, I just spent some time cleaning this thing, which I'm sure has a name, but I'll just call it the diff cover, because that's basically what it is. It's an interesting shade of yellow. It doesn't match the rest of everything else that's inside the steering clutch case. But this is actually all rust that's growing on it here. And the gasket surfaces, so inside obviously it's still painted because this is where there's this transmission stuff in here. But this is all pretty pitted. Or not there, but there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and wire wheel this whole thing and all the gasket surfaces and then repaint it. I got the first paint on. This, I just brushed this on. There was like maybe one run I saw right here. But for the most part, this turned out okay. I'll put another coat on. This is a really shiny, glossy, and bright. I can't even imagine what this tractor is going to look like when it's painted like this. It's going to be, it might be a bit much. Anyway, I'm not sure what to do about the gasket yet. So on the front and the rear, there's this groove here, and I forget where I read it, but I think there was some kind of wool gasket in here. And then at some point someone had left that gasket there, and then they did RTV. This surface is so thin, I don't think I can get away with just doing RTV on the surface. I'm gonna have to find something that kind of fill this hole in, something that's a little bit wider that'll compact on both the front and the back. The bottom is just flat, so I can do RTV here. But if you look at inside where it goes, so right here, this is the bearing carrier, and then on the other side, there was just a cork seal here on each side. There's a little divot in there for that. So I guess I can find some cork that's just a little bit taller that I can compress down, I guess, and then just RTV over it. Still not 100% sure on what to do about that. It's just so deep that you can't just fill it all in with RTV. I don't think it'll work. So I don't know. Maybe if you guys have some suggestions, you can let me know on what to do. I'll keep looking around. So if I do everything right, I should never ever see this thing again in my life once it's installed. But might as well do a second coat just to kind of practice how well this paint goes on when you brush it, because there's going to be parts that I'm going to have to brush on the outside. For the most part, it's pretty forgiving. It doesn't run. It's pretty thick, so it doesn't run too easily. Getting yellow. Yeah, this paint smooths out really nicely, actually. So I should have no problem when I actually go to spray stuff with putting it on thick and not having it run all over. So one other job I was going to do before I put the steering clutches back in was to pull these out and replace the seals. But now I've kind of thought about it, I'm kind of leaning away from that. First of all, I don't think these seals are leaking. There was no gear oil in this case. And both of these have the same amount of backlash. They're both, I mean, there's nothing kind of fishy about them. And I'm just worried. I don't want to get into something that's going to be a problem. I mean, I looked at the directions on what to do for this. Let's take a quick look. So basically these, I thought they were just screwed on, but they're actually press fit onto a tapered shaft here, just like the steering clutches. And so first you're going to have to pull them. And then basically CAT just tells you you're on your own, because it's telling you got to weld two nuts together to press them back on to 15 tons. You got to weld two nuts together and use some all thread and a hollow ram, which is fine. I mean, that's not a big deal, but I don't know. I'm thinking I'm just leaving them be. I don't know. Maybe you guys, if someone has experience with these things, maybe they should let me know. But that's kind of the way I'm going on that right now. We've run into another little issue on this lower transmission shaft. So I need to pull it out so I can replace second gear, which is on the bottom in the very back. And they have this little special nut on here. It's an 8-pin nut. I cannot find it anywhere. It's a CAT special part number. And looks like they have an index on this shaft to the nut. And that's probably because there's a little lock ring that goes in there. I've tried everything. It's already, even you can see it's a little beat up. I've tried, a pipe wrench. I've tried everything, even though I hate doing that. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet for this. I need to find that socket to get it off there. It's torqued on there really, really good. At least 100 foot-pounds, probably 150, because I had a cheater bar on there and it was not going. So that'll be another look. I think when I go to pick up the engines, I'll ask the guy if he has any CAT-specific tools left over. He might have something like that, because I looked around and that socket is used for other dozers. So anyway, I can't put that gear in until I figure that out. A couple updates over here on the price wall. So I got the recoil springs in, and I've been adding up the totals here. So the total for this section, $2,100. For the transmission, I got all the stuff in. I ordered new pressure plates, and they'll be in a few days. I had to get another collar. More on that later. That's for the clutch. I think I finally tracked down what was wrong with the clutch. We'll do that on another video. And then I got all this in. So we got 913 here, 1161, and engine, $500. More on the engine stuff later. That'll be another video. But so anyway, totaling this all up, we're at 4674. And there's still going to be more stuff. There's going to be more paint, which I don't have paint on here. Fasteners is going to be a few $100, and then fluids, a battery, probably another few $100 there. So just to give you an idea where we're at. But if you look at used dozers, that's actually, for $3,000 or $4,000 you can get a running dozer, but it's going to have problems. And when this one's done, it shouldn't really have any problems. So I don't know. It's probably a break-even type situation. We'll see. All right, well, I guess I'm going to leave the video there. This is kind of a mess of a video, but hopefully next week I'm going to get the steering clutches at least torn down, hopefully rebuilt, or it might be going and getting the engines from the wrecker. There was a lot of interest in the wrecker guy. People telling me I should ask for other parts, but I mean, just to put it in perspective, that place was already pretty much scrapped out. There was that big wall of engines, and then there was a few complete machines, and there wasn't really a lot of parts to grab. I mean, I got lucky on the hood and the engine, but I kind of walked around and there wasn't a whole lot more. I asked him if there was other stuff and we might look over, and I might grab, like, he had a huge, just like a mountain of radiators. I might grab a few of those just for just some ornaments around the shop here. But really there wasn't a whole lot more there. So anyways, guys, hopefully this video is entertaining. I mean, Dad kind of just blew my plans away when I was doing it. But with all that said, guys, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you very, very soon.